This lesson will be addressing the snap tools. So to get started here, we're going to select a line tool, the 2-point line, which we had a lot of experience with already. And we're going to, you already know about snapping to the grid. These grid points are pretty far apart. At any rate, what we want to do now is use the snap to ends. So to draw this line, it's going to only let me go to the ends of things. Ends of these lines, end of these arcs. There is no end on a circle, so I can't go to anything on a circle. So let's go ahead and we'll snap. We're going to draw a line starting from this end of this line. Notice down here the mouse says next point. So my next point will be any point on an entity. So now we can go any place on this circle, which isn't very precise, but any place on this arc, any place on these lines. So that's what that tool is for. It's not normally used in CAD drawing because, like I say, it's not precise at all. Normally we would continue on with the ends of something. The end of this arc will finish our line. Other end of the arc, end of this line, end of this line. So that's typically what it would be used. But it doesn't have to be, because we could also select this tool over here, perpendicular to something. And notice now that line we've been waiting to try to finish drawing can be snapped perpendicular to this circle. We'll go ahead and do that. So now we've used these 4 snap tools. This one means freeform, no snap at all. Grid, endpoints, any point on an entity, and perpendicular to an entity. So those 3 went pretty quick. Next we're going to draw a line using the centers snap tool. I don't know why it wouldn't show up. You know, it should have come up with center, but it didn't. Always something. Anyway, the center snap tool does what you would suspect it will do. We're going to draw a line, first point down here. The center of the arc is the radius. The center of the circle is the center of the circle. Center of a line, center of a line. So let's go from the center of the arc to the center of this line. And that's how we drew a line using the centers snap tool. The next snap tool we want to use, once again it's not showing the name, is called the middle snap tool. The middle snap tool goes in the middle of things. Now in an arc, the middle of an arc is not the center of the arc, it's the middle of the actual sweep of the arc. A circle has no middle. So we're going to go from the middle of this arc to, let's say, the middle of this line. Notice the middle of a line is also the same as the center of a line. So it doesn't make that distinction because the middle is the center on a line, but on an arc, the middle is not the center. So now we're going to go ahead and it says next point. So we're going to place a line from the middle of that arc to the middle of that line. And that's how you use the middle snap tool. We've seen how when you select something such as a circle, there's these selection points here, these little blue squares. The center of the circle, and there's 4 points on the circle. If we select this arc, it's got the center point and 3 points on the circle. These are points that define that entity. Well, if we go ahead and try to draw a line and use this snap function down here, right here, referenced, it says the first point, notice it jumps to those blue boxes if this was selected. So it jumps to those marking points. Lines always have a marking point at the ends of them. Marking point here. So we can go from one marking point to another marking point of another entity by using this tool. I'm sure you'll find some use for that at some time. Okay, at this time I'm going to select a line draw again, 2-point line. And we're going to select this tool here called the Distance SD tool. What that does is allows us to connect to a point on a line or a point on a circle. So we'll select the circle. We'll select the line, I mean. And we'll select the other one. Notice up here there's a number 5. The distance is 5 units. Well, I can't do that with this particular example. So I'm going to have to go from, notice the selection point's 1 inch from the end of it. And the selection points are 1 unit from the ends of these arcs. There is no end of that. It's always that many of units from the end where it makes a selection point. So I just drew a line that's 1 inch from the ends of these two lines. Each end is 1 inch. So that allows you can change these numbers up here, and you can make something offset from the end of something. And that's the purpose of this distance SD snap tool. Next, we're going to look at this tool called Distance Manual. When we select this tool, once again, we get a snap distance. It can be a fraction. Notice I have 1/3 in here. It can be an actual distance in units, or it can be a percentage. What this is going to do is go to place a reference point between 2 points by this particular value. Let's go back to a distance for a moment. We'll make the distance 1 unit. So 1 unit distance is what we're going to use. So now we go ahead and we find the middle of this guy. Middle of that guy. Now that's what I did. My line was between these 2 points, but it offset the snap point 1 unit inside the end of that reference imaginary line. So my snap point is now an imaginary point 1 inch from this end of that imaginary line. I can also change these numbers. Let's make it 3 units. Or better yet, you've seen a unit already. Let's do a percentage. Here's what's kind of interesting. Our percentage can be greater than 100%. So let's make it 125%. So now when I draw a line between, let's say, this point and this point, the snap point is 25% further past the end of this imaginary line. So we can go beyond our line in a positive direction using percentages, or just even using a, let's go back, select it again. Or if we even just use a distance which is greater than the length of the line, the snap point can be projected beyond a line referenced by those 2 points, extended out here someplace. If you want to make the reference go on the other side, then what we have to do is make this a negative number. We'll make it -5. Now we'll snap between this point and this point. And lo and behold, it's 5 units away from the first point, but it's on the path of a line that went through both points I selected. This is how you can offset your relative reference point. That's pretty neat stuff. Next, we're going to select this intersection tool, snap tool. Left click on it, and notice it jumps right to the intersection of 2 things. That's the only thing it can jump to. It can't jump to anything else. So the intersection of 2 things, that starts our line because we're still using our draw line with 2 points. But now I can't go anyplace else with it because there's no other intersection. So I have to go up here and change what I want to snap to. So let's change it to snap the ends of something. So we'll go from that intersection, let's say the end of this line. So now I've placed a line which went from the intersection, which was found by the intersection snap tool, right here, went up to the end of that line. So that's how that works. And last but not least, we have this snap tool down here called Intersection Manual. Really, it's an intersection extension. What it will do, it will find the intersections that haven't happened yet, but they could happen if the lines were extended, and it'll go right here. First, I got to select the first point. Then I got to select the second point. And then it puts the extended snap point right there. Once again, this status line was in error on this particular function. It didn't say first object, second object, or first entity, second entity, all that. It just didn't say anything. So there's a problem with the status line for this function. But anyways, now we got a snap point to start a line, and they could go to here because these do intersect. They're physical intersect. They're not extended, but it still sees them as an intersection. But normally you wouldn't want to use that tool for both ends of the line. Let's just use this tool over here and do something that's not logical in CAD, and that's use any point on any one of these objects. We'll use this point right here. So that's how you would use this tool right here, intersection manual, which means it's an extended intersection. It doesn't really exist, but it could exist if the lines were longer. This will be very valuable in future lessons. So there you have it. This is an introduction to the snap tools. Notice we didn't cover the tools down here. We'll discuss those in later topics later on when you have a need for these items.